Are you considering making a move to Auburn, Alabama? You've probably heard of the great community, the great schools, and the beautiful outdoor spaces. Now, with that said, it may not be perfect for everyone. So in today's video, we're going to get into 10 things to consider when moving to Auburn, Alabama. Auburn, Alabama area. I want you to make sure to go ahead. Hey everyone, Alex Acuff here with eXp Realty and the Acuff Weekly Group. If this is your first time to our channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button as well as the bell notification. That way you don't miss another video about everything eating, sleeping, living, playing Auburn, Alabama. And we are getting reach outs from people just like you that are thinking about making the move. And the first step is always to join us on a Zoom call, just about a 10 to 15 minute consultation. You can actually contact us right here on the screen. I've got my contact information and we'd love to connect with you, be the boots on the ground and help make that transition as easy as possible. And you've continued to probably consume a lot of the content here on our page. So we want to hear some feedback and we would love to hear back from you. If you are thinking about making the move and you do have a home that you need to sell in anywhere across the United States, go ahead and scan the QR code here and get a home value on your property. To get started, we will reach out. If you have an agent, fantastic. If you need a great agent in your area, we get raving reviews all the time from our referral partners. So make sure to scan the QR code and we'll contact you and set you up with a great agent who serves your area. Let's get into point number one, and that is the cost of housing. Something to absolutely consider, especially when making the move to Auburn, Alabama, because not everybody's looking to rent. A lot of people are looking to put their money, their equity from one home into the next. So considering the cost of housing is important if you're considering living in the city of Auburn. Now, if you're coming from a major metro area, you may find prices here to be maybe normal, a little bit less than where you currently live. But if you're coming from a small town, it may be a little bit of a sticker shock whenever you see the home prices here. Now, our average home price sits at about $375,000 for the average home. That's about a 4-bedroom, 2.5 to 3-bath home, ranging anywhere from about, call it 1,900 to 2,400 square feet. And just depending on your location in Auburn will really dictate that sticker price on the home. Now, just a last piece on this is just to consider that the cost of living in Auburn is less than your major metro areas. So you can look at budgeting accordingly. So maybe you're saving some money on your cost of living, but you can actually spend that on your monthly mortgage. The number two thing to consider is that this is a smaller town and it has a different lifestyle. So really, Auburn has its own little vibe. It's a college town that is deep in its southern roots. And so if you're moving from a major metro area, you may find that the pace of living here is actually pretty slow, or it could be about normal. It just depends on where you live in town. It could be a little busier as you live closer to the university or maybe even closer to the highway, but traditionally it's going to be a lot slower. Now, if you're coming from a smaller town, you'll notice that gosh, there's a lot of people living here. We've got 80,000 people compacted into one small area, and that's not even including Opelika and the surrounding areas. So for some that are looking for that slower paced lifestyle, this could definitely be a benefit. If you're used to that fast pace, taking forever to get everywhere, this will take just a little bit of an adjustment when you move to Auburn. So you'll notice as you continue to live the lifestyle of Auburn is that it really just has its own small town charm. The people are very friendly here. It's a nice, easy pace. So if you go to a local coffee shop, you'll notice a nice, calm vibe. Even when you're walking around downtown, it may be a little bit busier, but overall, you'll continue to get the feeling because it's got those small town streets, small town buildings. Still, we do have a fewer higher rise buildings, but overall, the warmth and connectivity of the town, you'll feel that vibe as you go throughout. Next thing to consider is the weather. In Auburn, you will experience hot, humid summers, and you're going to experience mild winters. So for those that are the snowbirds coming down south, they absolutely love Auburn. And the reason why is because very rarely do we even get snow. And if we do get snow, it's more of a dusting more than anything, and it's gone in about a day or two. But with that said, with the humidity levels, is that you'll notice that the weather, it gets bone chilly cold. You may not resonate with that, but what that means is that with the moisture in the air, as it gets colder down here, it's actually more of a penetrating cold. So you really feel very cold when you look at the temperature, probably compared to if you come from the Northwest. Now, if you are coming from the West, you'll notice that you can always handle the drier, hotter summers. Here, we get the humid, wet, hot summers, and they last quite a while. Now, I kind of talked about the goods and the bads of the hot and the cold, but the in-betweens are the chef's kiss of living in Auburn, Alabama. And what I mean is when we get into late September, all of October, November, most of December, we've got this stretch of just beautiful months where you will have incredible weather, beautiful foliage. You'll get out and walk. You'll run every day if you're a runner outside, and you won't have to just go to a gym and get on a treadmill. Now, like me, I'm a runner, and I do that right now. I'm filming this in November of 2024. So outside running is key right now. You got to enjoy it while you can, because when it gets to that humid, wet, cold wintertime, it gets pretty cold when you're running outside, and you just need to make sure you're packing layers. Now, between the seasons, we get what we call fake fall, fake spring, and the same thing occurs in the spring as well with when it comes to a couple months of really great weather. So a lot of people want to live here during that time. So wintertime here, if you're coming from the north, this is fantastic because you're not going to get the snow. But if you want to avoid the hot summers, you may want to go back north. The next thing you want to consider is your neighborhood research, and research in the neighborhoods that you want to be in, because you could be looking for something more with an HOA, or if you're looking for a townhome or a condo, there's always going to be regulations around that. So it's good to pay attention to where the neighborhoods are, where they're located, and understanding the pros and cons of what to expect when moving to a neighborhood. So if you're looking to park that RV, is that you may not be able to according to the HOA. If you're looking to put in a pool, you got to make sure you got to have it approved, as well as the fencing. Maybe you want to live on a golf course. There's all these little things to consider when it comes to neighborhood research. So when we hop on our call, we're going to help you discover some of the best neighborhoods that may be a great fit for you and your lifestyle. Next up, I want to talk about the traffic. And I previously lived in Atlanta, so I can compare this to a major metro area. It was kind of funny when I moved here. People were like, hey, there's lots of construction on the road. It may take you 15 to 20 minutes to get across town. And I looked at them, I said, interesting. It takes about 15, 20 minutes to go about a mile or two when you live in Atlanta. So if you're moving to Auburn, consider your drive time, consider your traffic. Now, with that said, it's not always just really easy traffic. Shug Jordan Parkway at about 4:30 to 5 can get backed up for several lights. It'll make a 15-minute trip turn into a 30-minute trip home really quick, especially now as the town continues to grow. It wasn't like that when I first moved here over 10 years ago. Now, also with the university, we've also got game day traffic, and you will realize that very quickly when football season comes, is that you will avoid downtown like the plague if you live here, just like we do, and you will enjoy the campus during the summertime when most of the kids are gone. The traffic is pretty intense around the university. If you're working around the university and you have to leave and go early morning, I suggest leaving pretty early, because once the students start packing in for the 8 a.m. classes and all the faculty and staff are still on the way, it can get quite bottled up. And also just be aware, we do have a train track that runs straight through the middle of town that will make you late all the time. So make sure you're tracking when the train is coming through and trying to avoid that. Now, when the train comes, you can expect anywhere from a 5-10 minute delay in your drive time. But traffic, if you're coming from a smaller town, it may take a little bit of adjustment. If you're coming from a big metro area, it's also going to be an adjustment. You're going to probably love the drive time a lot better if you're moving from a larger area. The next thing for you to consider is our political and cultural climate. Now, if we are just past our big election here and you saw that Alabama is traditionally a conservative state, you'll notice it was a red state. And the same thing is pretty much the same for Auburn, is that we do traditionally lean conservative. So if you're used to living in a conservative area and you're moving to Auburn, this may feel more at home. But also on the flip side, with having a university, is that there is a significant progressive push in the town. There's quite a few liberals, there's a lot of conservatives, but it is something to consider, especially when it comes to your culture and your lifestyle. You'll realize that Auburn, it does rest on its history, its traditional Southern town, its charm, but it does have a lot of progressive aspects, especially in the way that the town is developing. And you will notice that real quickly when you go downtown and you start to see, we've got a Target downtown, a Publix downtown, we've got these boutique hotels downtown. So you'll notice that it does have a progressive vibe to it, but ultimately overall, it's going to be more traditional, more conservative and laid back. The next thing I want you to absolutely pay attention to, and you may want to skip over this, but don't, you got to stay right here, is to consider what the regulations are in town. Now, we get a lot of people that move to Auburn that are looking to buy property that they can put their RV on or build a secondary building, maybe an ADU if you're coming from out west or a bigger city. You may be used to all that, but we have pretty tight regulations when it comes to how you can actually develop your property within the city limits, including chickens. So if you want to get chickens, you can have chickens, just no roosters in the city limits. And yes, there is a cap on how many chickens you can have per acre or per half acre. You can check with auburncity.com or .org for that information. But there are plenty of regulations when it comes here. And so you can't just buy a house in the middle of Auburn and put a horse on it. So those are things to consider. So if you're coming from maybe a larger parcel of property, you're coming from more of living on more of an estate, those are things to consider. And if that's so, that's not a problem. You know, we've got some great opportunities just outside of the city limits you can find over in Opelika, up in Waverly, down in Beauregard, and also out west in Lochapoka. So really just no major surprises here. Just familiarize yourself with the regulations and you'll notice that most of the neighborhoods actually have an HOA here in town as well. Next thing to talk about is your expectations versus the reality of living in Auburn. Now, if you're coming from a larger city, this is mostly for you. The expectations is that you're going to this small town and it's got like all these local places, small businesses, and yes, we absolutely have those, but there's also a significant amount of chain restaurants, chain department stores, and amenities throughout town. And also the reality is that if you are coming from a larger town, is that you may be a little disappointed in some of those things as well. So you're not going to get like a Topgolf around the corner. You know, you're not going to get a bunch of breweries like if you lived in West Midtown in Atlanta. So the expectation versus the reality, I highly suggest when we hop on the Zoom call, we typically like to schedule an intro for you to come see the town. We'll take you around, give you a tour, show you the north side, the south side, within the circle around the university, so you can kind of get a grasp on the area and really help shape your reality. Now, most people think of Alabama as super country, a lot of woods, and don't get me wrong, Alabama is actually like 70% woods, but Auburn is more of a bustling, not a metro area, but almost like a subset of that. Just, it's more of a bubble town. If you want to go to the bigger towns, you know, you're an hour from Atlanta, you're 30 minutes from Columbus, or if you want to go to Birmingham, it's about an hour and 45. And then also you got about 35, 40 minutes to Montgomery. So there are some bigger cities and everything, but just the reality of it is that there may be certain amenities, especially if you love nice shopping, you're not going to probably get those types of amenities here. The next thing to consider is your seasonal allergies and bugs. I know this is not what everybody wants to talk about, but so Auburn, you know, we have pollen that comes out about twice a year that is pretty nasty. And so if you have bad allergies, you may find that living in Auburn may not be the best fit for you, but there's always ways around that, right? So there's all these fun apps to tell you what kind of pollen is in the air so you can understand if is it ragweed or cedar or whatever it may be that may be affecting your allergies. So that is something to consider when moving to the Auburn area, especially if you have some pretty bad allergies. Now, I was born and raised here, and I actually didn't have allergies for about 30 years, and then all of a sudden they just kicked in. So not everybody has allergies here, but it is something to consider, as well as the bugs. You may not be used to having mosquitoes all around when it gets humid out, or you may not be used to seeing what we call cockroaches, and they do exist here. In a humid climate, you'll notice that when it rains, it sometimes will push ants into the house. When it's drier as well, you may pull them out, but you'll notice you'll have ant piles in your yard. So bugs are always something to consider, as well as just continue to put the fright in your eyes on this, is that of course we have coyotes, lots of frogs, lots of hawks and vultures. So there's lots of creatures all around. Just something to consider when you're moving to Auburn. So there you have it. Auburn has a lot to offer, and there's lots of things to consider. Now, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a comment, hit the like button. Make sure you also subscribe to the channel. We'd love to hear what you're considering when moving to Auburn, Alabama. So if you're ready to make the move, just make sure to always know there's always pros and cons when moving to Auburn, Alabama, and there's always these things to consider. So I hope you take that into consideration, schedule the call with us, and we look forward to chatting with you and seeing you on the next video.